Hello, I'm Dustin with Kruger's Training Academy and Kruger Instruments. Today we're going to be testing the SVB spill-resistant vacuum breaker utilizing the USC 10th edition test procedures. If you're in a class, if you're you're studying for your exams and things, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. You might have watched our other videos using the other types. Spill resistance are pretty rare. If you're just familiarizing your test procedures, definitely useful for that. We're going to be testing this Wilkins 460 XL 3/4 inch, and we're going to be using a Kruger Instruments TK2 test kit. They're the 2-valve version. If you have a bigger one, specifically the digital ones or Midwest or something, you might have additional valves. You have like a high, low, and bypass with the high and low bleed. The 2-valve kits, they only have the 2, so it's like high bleeds over here, low bleeds over here. USC refers to them as the bleed valve. Some other textbooks, they call them the high and low valve. Pretty straightforward. It's accurate to plus or minus 0.2 psi, 0 to 15 on the full pressure for the differential, 0 to 300 for the line pressure kit. It should meet all of the specs in whatever area you're testing. You want to make sure that they accept the gauge. Don't buy the gauge and then have to return it because they don't accept it in your jurisdiction. They should though. Definitely reach out if they don't, and we can send them an application or something like that. If you're interested in the test kits, definitely let me know. It's KrugerInstruments.com. If you have your own Backflow school and you're just checking out the videos to see what everybody else is doing, definitely check us out. We do have a resale program for affiliates for the Kruger Instruments. I'm not sure if you're trying to sell test kits in your class or not. But anyway, I guess we'll get into it with the test. First step, I know you're thinking like, oh, I'm going to start flushing test cocks. The first step is always notify, identify, inspect, observe. If you're preparing for an exam, they usually just want you to say those words. Some of the proctors might be like, oh yeah, like, what are you inspecting? What are you observing? Things like that. There is actually very long paragraphs in the USC book about like exactly what you're doing with all of those things. For us, we just say the words. The first official step, I guess, would be to remove the air inlet canopy. Some schools, some exams you take, there won't be any canopies. Sometimes the canopies are just like thrown away. If that's the case, a lot of times they want you to verbally say like, I'm removing the canopy. They might not be worried about it at all. You want to defer to whatever your proctor is telling you to do with that. Open and close the test cock. There's only one test cock, so the book actually just refers to it as the test cock. If you look at some of our other videos with other valves, there are like multiple test cocks, so they're numbered. This one's just the test cock. Unique to the SVB, there's also a bleed screw. The bleed screw kind of functions like a test cock. But there's no valve. It's just like it's either open or closed, like wide open to atmosphere or not. For the USC in the beginning, you bleed the test cock. So you just kind of like bleed it off a little bit. It does have full line pressure on it. So if you unscrewed it all the way, it totally go flying, and then you got to go find the screw and everything. It's always a big ordeal. Sometimes it's in a grate or something. You just kind of open and close it. Then you bleed water through then you install appropriate fittings. A lot of them are already going to have the fittings attached. If you notice, this is a Wilkins. We have some other videos where they're already attached. So a lot of times they come just raw end. It's just a raw 1/4 inch threaded. So we do have a fitting we have to install. This is a 90-degree quick connect test cock fitting. You can find these most places online. I know Arbiter sells them, Midwest sells them, everybody sells them. You can probably find them on Amazon. We have the 90-degree because a lot of times PVBs and SVB specifically, the test cocks kind of face the line that's going to come down. So you might end up needing these. But for this step, we just install appropriate fittings. Close needle valves on test kit. Again, we only have 2 needle valves, so we just close high and low. We have to install a bleed off T. So for the USC 10th edition, they do have a bleed off T that they want you to install. So you install that on the test cock fitting that you have. Bleed off T is just in case the shutoffs are leaking, then you might have to bleed them off. Then you attach your high hose to the high side of the test kit. and the bleed off valve that you have. Make sure everything's tight. Open your test cock. Pressurize your kit. Open high bleed. It says here for USC, some test procedures, they don't really mention this. You want to have some water on the bleed, on the air inlet. Helps you notify, or helps you identify if it opened or not and things like that. So when you do that when you bleed your high side. Now you want to close your shutoff valves. You close shutoff 2 first. Always close shutoff 2 first. You shouldn't be closing shutoff 1 first. The rule of thumb is if you're messing with shutoff 2 should already be closed. Next, you close shutoff 1. At this point, you can actually get, or before you shut off 1, you can get your line pressure. I'm reading 47. It has to resolve 5, so like every little line is 5. The big ones are numbered, so 50, so it'd be 45, I guess. You want to make sure you're looking directly on it as well. So that's actually our first reading. If you're taking an ABPA or some kind of proctored exam, they might not even ask you for it, but if they do, you want to write it down, 45. Next, you shut your inlet shut off, or shut off 1. Then you go ahead and remove you just remove the screw. Some people say you loosen it first. You don't want it to be like, you don't want to bang it open and then like it drops really quickly. You can create water hammer that can affect your test. So you want to bleed off the bulk of the pressure, then remove the screw. Make sure your gauge and end of high bleed is level with the screw the whole time. We're getting our check valve reading. The big lines are 1, the tiny lines are 0.2. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm reading it as 4.0. It does matter which way, like if you're looking at it straight on, you want to always be looking at your stuff straight on. So we'll say 4.0 for the check valve. So on our test kit here, or on our sheet here, close tight, 4.0. For USC, if you're doing the test and the air inlet opens before the check valve, it's actually considered fine. For some of the other procedures, ASSE notably, they say like, because it's a spill resistant, the air inlet should always have a lower pressure spring than the check valve. So if the air inlet opens before the check valve, they actually say like it's not working as designed. They should be designed where the check valve's higher than the air inlet. But for USC, they say if you open this and you get your air inlet, it's actually a fail. We look at that on the procedures. For this one, we're not going to go into it. So we're going to say check valve 1 holds. If you're doing some other procedures, you might want to check out our other videos. So leave everything level. Then you open your high bleed. I'm going to open it. It's going to dump pretty quick. So you want to get this reading. This is a very tricky reading to get. You're looking for water coming out of the hole or all this water at the top moving. And that's your air inlet opening point. You open your high bleed a tiny bit. Starts dropping. It just opened 2.1 is what I got. It does keep dropping. Once it opens, you get your opening reading. You want to get it when the air inlet actually opens. So you go on your test report form, opened at 2.1. Next step, you actually remove the hose completely. Some of the other test procedures, they don't ask you to do that. You just remove the hose. Make sure that the air inlet opened fully. So then you get your next reading, get your air inlet valve open fully. The shutoffs were tight. There's other procedures you do for that. If you check out our diagnostic videos, we go into like if shutoff 2 or shutoff 1 leaks. Since nothing goofy happened, we say those are tight. So for this valve, it looks like it passed. You close your test cock. Make sure you put your screw back. If you don't put your screw back and you're in a class, they might punch you in the face. Who knows what's gonna happen? But yeah, if you leave this off and turn it on, it's gonna spray whoever's to the left of you. So be careful with that. Remove all the equipment, so including your bleed off tee and also any applicable adapters. Open shut off one. You should always open shut off one first. That way you don't inadvertently create some back pressure. Then you open shut off two. It says slowly, so don't do it super fast. Anything in the book, if it says slowly, you don't want to go like, because sometimes they have a problem with that. Replace air inlet canopy. Again, if you don't have a canopy, they might say like, oh, I'm replacing the canopy, like verbally. You don't want to forget that step. And you just kind of screw it in. So anyway, it looks like everything's good on this valve. Check valve has to hold at least one. Air inlet has to open at least one. So assembly test performance, we're going to say it passed. So I appreciate you guys checking the video. Definitely like and subscribe. If you made it to this point, then it definitely provided some value for whatever you're doing. If you have a question or you see an error in what I did, definitely comment. A lot of times people comment and then so they're watching the video, they see your comment, they see my response to the comments, so it kind of answers their question a little faster. So definitely comment if you have a question, comment or something like that. Otherwise, should be links in the description for the valve, for the test kits, for the training courses we do. Good luck on whatever exam you're preparing for. Definitely check out our other videos. We have ones with more elaborate things with the diagnostic failures. When you get to that point of the class, you should definitely check that out. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Thank you.